First, though, we'll begin the programme by discussing new research which shows the number of suicides in middle-aged men being treated for mental health issues in the UK has risen dramatically in the last 10 years. According to a report by the University of Manchester today, around 1,200 male patients take their lives each year. Since 2006, there's been a 73% increase in incidence amongst middle-aged men. That's those between 45 and 54. In total, almost 4,800 men took their own lives in 2013. Now, this new report today suggests that men are at particular risk, not just because they don't often ask for help, sometimes don't ever ask for help, but also because of alcohol and money worries. On Monday, we discussed mental health in a special programme, and some of you in the audience talked about what led you to try to take your own life.
Blackouts, depression, suicidal ideation. I've tried to take my life twice in the last 4 years, and no treatment, but being told that I need to be medicated in the community. I'm also a recovering addict. Please don't give me a mind-altering substance to keep me safe, in inverted commas. I've tried antidepressants before. They don't work, and you've heard that consistently throughout. They do work for some people, but you've heard it consistently here that they make the symptoms worse. And it took me nearly 10 years to get a diagnosis, I guess, from in and out from my GP. And then when I did get a diagnosis, 102 weeks I waited for the treatment to start.
I've taken 4 overdoses. I'm scared of taking tablets, so
Right.
how am I meant to take tablets when I'm scared of it?
Yeah.
And every time I have taken them, I've been sick. I took them 2 weeks ago and I lost 4 pounds in 2 days. I can't live like that. I can't live being that and being sick and the people around me having to suffer, and there's not enough help for other people around you to help you as well, to give you sort of a circle of trust that you can help you.
Interesting, the number of people who were in agreement here when you said, you know, I can't take tablets, I've got a sort of fear of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary.
And you can watch more of that programme on our website, bbc.co.uk/Victoria. So this morning we wanted to have a conversation between people affected by suicide to talk about the possible reasons for such a dramatic rise. Peter Warwick is here, he's 49, he's been diagnosed as bipolar. He's tried to take his own life twice in the last 8 years. Tom Metcalf is 33, he has depression and says he thinks about suicide regularly. Sangeeta Mahajan lost her 20-year-old son, Saga, in October last year when he took his own life. And Emily Van Dyke is 24. Her dad killed himself when she was 15. And welcome all of you. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. And, you know, particularly to talk about such very personal things, such as your emotions, Peter and Tom, when you thought about potentially taking your own life. How would you describe that time?
I would describe it as there's no lonelier place. You just get to such a state, well, personally anyway, everything just gets too much, and it is just... Bipolar depression is just one of the worst I personally feel, and it's just the only way out. All I can say is, for me, it was just isolating, juxtaposed with I was happy because I knew, for me, that point the end was near.
Yeah, I think, yeah, very much relate with that. And I just wanted somebody to understand the point that I was at and almost agree with me that that was what I thought it was best. I really did believe it. And if I could get somebody to agree with me and see my point of view, which I'm glad they didn't, and I'm still here, but yeah, it's a very difficult and dark place, and that point of feeling a burden to the people around you. Mine was at Easter, and I didn't want to ruin people's Easter day by dealing with what I was dealing with that day. So I'd rather be alone and suffer in that than get someone to take me to hospital.
Yes.
So you thought everybody else around you would be better off if you weren't around?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's...
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've heard that, have you?
I've heard that as a reason, not a reason, but yeah,
that's what people say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my son, when he was really depressed, we took some days off, and we used to, you know, have a routine, you know. The idea was to get him into a routine, so we used to go for a walk every morning after breakfast, and I would, you know, I'd be so happy to have that time with him, and he would say, well, it must be like taking a dog out for a walk. you know. It's just really heartbreaking because it wasn't, you know, but he obviously felt so small doing these silly things with me that he was fully capable of doing himself when he was well. And now, you know, he needed me to take time off work to do. So I think
We're showing
do
pictures
feel
of your
very
son,
small.
Saga, now, which I know you want us to show photographs of him. Explain why.
Yes, it's because, you know, we always think it happens to somebody else. You know, it's never going to happen to me. I thought the same even when my son was fully diagnosed with a mental illness, and I'm a doctor. But not once did it cross my mind that this could happen, you know. And so I just want to show his picture, firstly because he's handsome, and secondly because he's one of us. It could be anybody. It could be anybody, you know, and it strikes completely out of the blue. And I think, you know, family and friends just need to look out for each other, friends, you know, because...
But you were looking out for him, and he had been diagnosed, he was in the care of mental health services, and that's the report today, you know, this dramatic rise in male patients in the care of the mental health services who are taking their own lives, despite the medication, despite the care, despite the treatment, which is really shocking. Emily, tell us about your dad.
My dad took his own life in 2006, which was strange because you said since 2006 there's an increase. And it was horrific, you know, it was very out of the blue for me. I was only 15. We didn't really know what was going on. My family didn't really understand. They didn't know how to explain it to us and my younger brother, who was 11 at the time. But there was a big help.
What did they say? What did your mum say to you?
It was a lovely day. We were walking home from school. I think my brother and I were running away from a bee, and like my neighbour, like she already knew, and she was watching us out of her window, and she knew it, knowing that we were going home to such horrific news. And my mum, she rang a charity that I now am a young ambassador for, Winston's Wish, and, you know, said, how do I word this to them? Like, there's nothing more, you know, horrific to try and say to my children as they walk through the door. And they tried to say, you know, it's always best to be truthful, don't try and hide any of the facts. And it was just, you know, sat down on the sofa and was told this, you know, your daddy's not here anymore. I think we were talking earlier about how it is difficult for men, you know, you try and be the macho, like, oh, nothing's wrong, and I'll look after everybody, and it's difficult for them to speak about it.
I think that's very much so, and I think it's going to get worse because whether we like it or not, I feel men are very reticent to speak about their well-being or their health, and they find it hard within their own race. And
like everything's fine.
Everything's fine, and we say, oh yes, that's fine, and we know we're not. And this is the problem, and I think this is where it really is going to take its toll. I mean, it's a terrible rise in the last years, and people, I honestly believe, people who go and say they are feeling suicidal have to be believed. I feel this so strongly.
Are you saying that you have expressed that and you haven't been believed?
I am underlying that and putting a full stop a couple of times. And when you're in
and
that...
look at Tom, you're nodding as well, seriously.
Seriously.
Are you saying medical professionals aren't taking it seriously?
Even when they're medically professional.
My son filled in a PHQ-9 form. I only learnt of it now when I'm going through the documents for
what form is that?
PHQ-9 is Patient Health Questionnaire 9, number 9, which has a set of 9 questions with 3 optional answers, with 3 being the worst. And suicidal ideation is one of the questions. And only now I have learnt that he scored 27 on 27, which is the highest score possible on that questionnaire, 2 weeks before he died. And that reflects your feelings 2 weeks before. So actually we had a month to sort him out. But nobody told me that that was his score till after he had died.
It's difficult because you have the patient confidentiality, and the family aren't allowed to be involved, really.
But the thing is, if I'm the prime carer,
Yeah.
how can you not involve the
I
carers?
know.
Because the patient is unwell. He cannot see.
Because they'll sit there and go, I'm fine, I'm fine.
But you almost need to be there alongside
but
them
we
saying,
can't-
Yes.
no, he's not.
He's not fine. He's not fine."
Absolutely.
Tom, you say you've experienced this where people haven't believed you when you
Yeah.
said you have
I don't
suicidal
know if
thoughts.
it's that they haven't believed me or that I've felt that they haven't believed me. but
Right,
there's
okay,
definite
well, that's
kind
interesting.
Like they don't
of-
take it seriously enough.
Exactly, and I mean, you know, you present yourself, and what happened to me, oh, you know, we'll send you home with a diazepam and someone will see you in the morning. Well, if you're suicidal, that's not good enough.
Yeah, how do you know
You
who's
could go
seeing
and
me in
kill
the morning?
yourself, you know. This
And I
is the
think
point.
I had a particular experience, and I phoned the crisis team, and they were like, "Oh, you've made it 2 days since you were in hospital. You've done really well," and that was helpful, but also seemed very patronising. And then I was told I'd rung the wrong number and I needed to ring another number to get help. When you're phoning something that's set up for people in crisis, I was saying that I was suicidal. I had been for days. I needed to get to hospital. To then be told you've rung the wrong number. Can you ring this one? It just it doesn't make
I
sense.
mean, that does, you know, their heart must be in the right place. They must, you know, they're not dismissing you, are they? Presumably there was, I don't know, something going on that day. I don't know. That's no excuse, but it's a potential explanation. You can't imagine that someone cares so little that they just dismiss you in that way. Is that fair or not?
I know that there are pressures on people in
Yeah.
those situations and dealing with them, but I think there has to be, and there are probably like pressures, work pressures on them and things that they have to do, but I think there are times when protocol shouldn't be followed.
Yes.
And when actual feelings come into
Humanity.
things, and I think
Exactly.
that's the whole problem, that feelings aren't dealt with, and that's what leads to this.
Tom, do you mind me asking you how regularly you think about taking your own life?
I'd say suicide is actually a daily thought. Not a serious daily thought, not to the levels that I've planned it in the past, but there will always be something. Even on good days, I think this could be a good day to go, and I'll go on a high rather than on a low, and I don't want to get to that point again. So, but yeah, I deal with it, and I deal with it in a positive way now, and I'm actually looking to do something with it rather than suffer from it. Actually
Right.
be a part of some kind of solution and help other people to get...
So there is a way of managing it then? There is a way of managing this?
Well, I'm still here.
Yes,
So
yes.
I think that's a success story in itself.
Yeah.
I could very well not be, and I am, so there has to be some kind of positive from that and something that I can give back from that.
Yeah, very much so. I would agree there. I would agree there, because I mean, and I think if you can, if everybody watching today, if we just help one person, we've saved a life. And I think it's so important that people do speak out to someone, speak out. It doesn't matter, just get it out, because if it implodes, that's the danger. And if you keep things in, oh, I won't bother them, like you were saying, Tom, I can't do it today because it's Easter, I can't because it's Christmas. But you just speak and get it out.
We were talking
Then
about it
it
being a
could help.
taboo, though.
Yeah, yes, very much so.
Sorry,
Trying to-
Ellie, say again.
We were talking about trying to... The more you speak about it, the less it will be a taboo subject. Do you know what I mean?
It's
Exactly.
great
Do you
we're
think?
talking
Do you
about-
think
got
it
so
is a
far
taboo
to go.
subject?
It is,
Yes.
absolutely.
With what sort of people?
Well, I give you an example. I wrote to one of the big parks in central London saying, could I please have a vigil in the memory of the people we've lost and increase awareness around suicide? And they wrote back saying, it's too terrible a thing to talk about in our park because
Right.
our people come here to relax. But if you want, we can organize a discreet meeting for you. So this is London, you know. This is people. We know that assist course, which is provided by Papyrus, which trains staff and students in schools, talks about suicide prevention.
Yes.
The blockage they face often is at the level of the staff. The staff itself don't want to talk about it, it's too dark. And that is because there's a myth associated with suicide, that when you mention the word, you put the idea in somebody's head. No, that's wrong. You don't. The idea is already there. You give them an opportunity to talk about it. You lighten their burden. So actually asking the question, simple question, are you thinking about suicide? Somebody who's down and out is a good thing to do, is the thing to do.
Let me read these comments from people who are watching you around the country. On Twitter, Stan says, I tried to take my own life in 2009. It's a terrible place to be in, and I never ever want to go there again. James on Twitter says, everybody should be watching you discuss this now, in particular you, Sangeeta, talking about your son. very brave and very moving. And Dominic on Twitter says Sangeeta is incredibly brave, sharing her beautiful son's story with us.
She really is.
And this terrible illness needs more publicity, which you've helped to give it today. So thank you very much for coming on the programme.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Tom, Emily, Peter and Sangeeta. Many thanks.
Thank you.
If you need to talk to someone about the kind of things we've just been discussing here on the programme, there is information on the BBC Action Line website where there are details of various charities offering information and support, or you can call 0800 066 066. And if you head to the BBC iPlayer, you can watch Monday's special audience discussion programme all about people's experience of living with mental health illnesses. Thank you again.
Thank you.